Hi, and welcome to the Self-Love Greenlight. This is me, Trina Kavanagh-Thomas. I am a writer, healer, and a creative. Today, I'm here with Laura. I'll get there in the end. I've got a cousin called Laura as well. Laura Cayouette. You know what? Your surname is just beautiful. Really,
Thank you.
it's got a really nice ring to it as well. Now, for the audience, if you don't know who Laura is, you can find her. She's an actor, author, filmmaker. She I definitely would say you are definitely a person for unleashing creativity. And that you're a dancer as well for the Pussyfooters, but you're best known for acting Django Unchained with Leonardo DiCaprio. You've been in over 60 movies, TV shows. It's mentioned on here you're in Friends as well.
Yes.
Yeah. My daughter loves Friends. So
It's popular still. It amazes me. It's still so popular.
yeah, because it's really, obviously it still keeps going, and I know my daughter still watches all the reruns and stuff. But I think what I really want to hone in on is you as an author. You've 8 books, including No Small Parts, An Actor's Guide to Turning Minutes into Moments and Moments into Career, with a foreword from Richard Dreyfuss, and endorsements from Kevin Costner, Diamond Phillips, so many, so many. And you've also done courses as well, writing Unblocked. How I went from writing one book in 20 years, wow, to writing 5 in 4. So helping writers of all skill levels tell their stories and create their projects. And obviously you've created a course off the back of that as well called Creating Characters, which is a 6-part video course designed to help writers develop individualized characters. This is incredible. But, if you really think about it, it is really brilliant what you have created. And me and Laura had a very, very, very long chat. We can talk. We could definitely talk. And I tell you what, we will be here all day talking because we find so much in common. You know what I'm going to start off on? Because families, because that's the first thing that we were talking about was families. And I kind of, from your writing and from the creativeness of creating characters in particular, as we were talking, you know a lot about families and the history of families. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm going.
Well, I will tell you a place we can land with that because it actually is a theme that comes up a lot for me in my writing, especially, is what is family. And the book I wrote that took 20 years to write is called Lemonade Farm, is the story of a commune during 1976. And that was when American families started really falling apart, and then having to sort of restructure and redefine what is a family. How do you know who your family is? And I really wanted to look at that. And it's, I started writing that, gosh, back in the 80s. And now the evolution of the American family has come so far, because now the American family could be anything from 2 moms or, and some children, or it could be multi-generational under one roof, or it could be, all of the people in your ballroom culture family who are all living in one house under a house mother. There are so many different ways to do family now, and so many reasons. In the LGBTQ community, there are so many ways they've created new families in order to deal with the fact that they're birth families are maybe not as interested in supporting their lifestyle. So, there's all these different kinds of, and my husband works with foster children. That's another kind of way of creating families. So, that idea of like, what is a family? What is the family? It changed right in front of my eyes when I was a kid. And so I wanted to, it's something I'm always interested in writing about and always interested in talking about. And then with my mystery series, I wanted to dig into the genealogical aspects of family and how we're all connected in ways that are philosophical and spiritual, etc. But we're also all connected like biologically, that there's a lot of, that you and I can't know whether or not we're related just by looking at each other.
That's so true.
Right. I mean, we might be cousins. So that idea of that sometimes family is, who you choose.
Yeah.
And that's one way we have created family now. But also sometimes family is what's underneath, what's chromosomal and blood and is hidden that actually unites all of us.
You know what? It's really funny because we were chatting before you came on, and you were saying that your family actually came from England in the 1600s, and I know that we could be related in some way. There is no, I think, when we look at people, sometimes we think that we couldn't possibly be related to someone. However, there's a high chance we could be related to someone. And it's amazing. Have you ever found this, that two people can be in the same room, but their families generations and generations and generations back actually be related?
Well, I one time was at a meeting. There was a meeting in North Louisiana. This is when I lived in Los Angeles. I lived in LA for 18 years. And I was I was trying to produce a movie called Bitches and Heat that was a road trip movie about some girls in the desert. So that hence the name. But I was meeting with, I had an attorney with me from LA, and we were meeting with somebody in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is, I'm sure you don't know Louisiana, but Shreveport is so far north in Louisiana. Like New Orleans is in South Louisiana. Shreveport is so far north that it's basically Tennessee. It's basically just another region entirely. And I'm at this meeting with this stranger, and my attorney had said, "Wow, it's weird how all y'all down here all seem to either know each other or be related or whatever." And I said, "Oh, you're just generalizing. You're just making that up." And the guy that we're having the meeting with, at some point, my attorney friend has to go to the restroom. He excuses himself. Me and the guy we're meeting with talk for, how long does it take to go to the restroom? Like 7 minutes. In the 7 minutes that attorney was gone, we figured out that I was related to the guy we were meeting with.
Oh my God.
So yeah, you really don't know. And this also happened after Katrina. There was a guy who reached out to me. He said he had gotten my name from the United States government as somebody who was willing to help. And I don't know what that list is that had my name on it, but I was willing to help. And so I'm helping this guy, and I'm taking down everything he needs. And he lives in Alabama, and he's telling me everything to send and how to take care of all of the things they're trying to do in their community. And I'm going to knit and crochet hats and scarves for him. And so the very last thing I do is say, "Okay, so tell me the name and address to send all this to." And as he's telling me his name, I went, I think we're related. And he turned out to be Ken. So, this is just a random guy that got my name from the United States government,
This is
with Katrina.
This is really funny and incredible, because can I in the UK, where were your family based?
Oh, I know that I'm descendant of the Oliver Cromwell family, so wherever they're out of.
Wow. Okay. You know what? Let's have a look. Because I'm always interested in. I bet you any money, anyone who's listening to this, are going. He comes from here. You should know this.
I know, right? I should be flogged for not knowing. But
yeah.
you know,
Oh, right. Okay. Huntingdon.
Huntington,
Huntingdon, Cambridgeshire.
Cambridgeshire.
Yeah, Cambridgeshire in the Midlands.
In the Midlands. Okay.
Yeah, in the Midlands. So I'm in the Midlands.
Okay.
So I'm Nottinghamshire, which is just up from Cambridgeshire.
Okay.
About an hour and a half away. But my family date back on my grandma's side. I've tracked them back to the 1700s in Derbyshire Heege, which is also in the Midlands, but it's a little bit more. So Cambridgeshire is more east and going a little bit south, and Derbyshire is more in the middle, so going a bit more west, slightly north, but into the middle. So there could be
the thing
interesting.
Well, the thing that is fascinating, and in America we have all this, I'm sure it's global, but we have all this hidden connection, because so many of the people here who whether it's because of slavery or because of racism or because of just differences in cultures, there are a lot of people here who are related that there's no record until we invented DNA. There's no, like, my family back in the day were slave owners. And so my mother raised me to know that anybody could be your cousin, and they don't have to look like you to be your cousin. Just anybody could be your cousin. And in particular, she had a list of names that if somebody has this name or this name or this name or this name, they could be your cousin no matter what they look like. And I think that was wise, and something that families that have slave ownership in their history are aware of. But it's not just slave owners who have this history of not knowing who you're related to. And honestly, throughout the history of history, I hate to break it to all the people, but mother's baby, father's maybe. We all know who our mothers are, but none of us for real knew who our fathers were until very recently. So, yes, your father who raises you is your father, but I'm saying genetically, didn't they just figure out that the royal family's got a little bit of blood issue?
There's different talks of different things within the royal family. That there's probably a love child of one of the members who's quite prominent in the family.
And so that happens.
There are possibilities, aren't there? And I think wherever there's possibilities, sometimes there's always someone trying to sweep it under the table.
Right. In my family, there are two different men, two different like great uncles or whatever to me. Two different men in my family were kidnapped by Native Americans. And I found out that kidnapped is a euphemism for they ran off and married and bred with Native Americans. So I'm also related to Native Americans, but I don't know. I could meet them in the grocery store and have no idea. We won't look alike. We won't have anything in common except our DNA.
I love that. How does this help you form your characters?
Well, one thing it does is help me formulate my personhood, because certainly my way of seeing the world is that I can't possibly be better or worse than anybody because I'm probably your cousin. So, if we're all cousins, if we're all related, then it gets harder to make it about that this thing is better or that thing is better if we're all family. And I think that's one reason that I am so interested in family, is because the more you dig, the more you find that we are all interrelated. We are that. Do you know about aspen trees?
No. And this,
So, and I don't know much about them because I've never been to Aspen and it's not my area of study. But aspen trees appear to be separate above the ground. They're all different trees. It's a giant forest of trees. Underneath, they all share the same root system. So when you look at aspen trees that appear to be separate, underneath, they're all connected. And I feel like that's the perfect analogy for the human race.
yeah, I do feel like we're all connected, and not just through biology. We also are connected through quantum physics as well, through energy. Right. Yeah, I do feel like all humans are all connected.
Yeah. So that's one thing I'm always writing about in some way. I mean, Lemonade Farm was about, this 1976 coming of age story of a girl growing up in a commune. But the mystery series is all about, this family thing. I mean, it has all these other mysteries, but it's not about murders. It's a mysteries series. And so the overarching thing is all these questions she has about who she is and how she came to be. And then the book I'm currently working on, I'm working on a 2-book series right now called The Source. And that is entirely about the nature of nature and the history of history, and that which connects us all, and the illusion of how, of thinking that we're all different. That in that book, we don't just share genetic coding, we share souls. Because in The Source, a lot of it will be about reincarnation and immortality and things. So you and I might be cousins in this life, but we might have been, sisters in a past life or whatever, brothers, whatever, who knows? So that idea of that all of it is hidden, and the truth of everything is that we are all one.
And it's really beautiful. How do you deal with, what keeps coming up? How do you deal with identities and families? Because obviously, sometimes people grow up with certain identities, but then they change. And that can sometimes change family dynamics as well.
Sure. Oh, sure. And, my uncle is a gay man. And I think a lot of people who have been coming out in the last 20 years or so, as it's been more acceptable to own your sexuality and your gender identity, I think a lot of people have had shifting dynamics in their families because they've changed the rules suddenly. Like if you have always been, somebody's son, and now you're asking that you be referred to as their daughter, or if you have always been considered to be macho, and you are now revealing that, yes, I am macho, but I am also gay, etc. Those kinds of shifts are really testing family boundaries, and that's one reason that people are creating their own families when it doesn't go well with their biological family. But yeah, I think one reason that I love writing about family is because it's the richest terrain we have. The dynamics in families, they spur everything from, love and marriage and babies and all that kind of stuff to murder and mayhem and, war. And a lot of what causes discord on our planet is the fact that we, like when you break up with a boyfriend that you love, and now you're like, but I hope everything bad happens to him, so that thing.
Oh my God. Oh, so many people have been there.
that just because we love each other doesn't mean we're not like, but why does your tree have to grow over my fence line? Like
Yeah.
we get annoyed with each other because we're sharing a space and we're sharing a time. And when you share space and time, you don't always agree on things, and you can't always negotiate that. And sometimes there's not enough resources for everybody in a family. So I guess I'm talking about the family of man by talking about families.
I think you've got a lot of scope, haven't you, when you look at families, because as you said, you know, you can go from murder to mayhem. There is so many intricacies about families, especially like if it's siblings or something like that, because obviously certain siblings have different types of characteristics. There's so much that you can, I suppose it's juicy content. And not only that, I don't know about you, Laura, do you feel like as a human race we're quite nosy? I know. Even doing the work I do, I went into it because I was just nosy as to how people act.
Yeah. Well, as an actor, I get to ask millions of questions about why people do what they do. And that has really contributed to my writing in the same way that my writing has contributed to my acting. Being a person who's constantly examining why people do what they do, what motivates people, what helps them justify their own bad behavior, what motivates them to reach for something beyond their grasp, what, you know, all of it. I find humans to be fascinating. I really do.
You know what it is? It's incredibly, it's I don't know. It is. It's fascinating to look at, you know, how people act and how people cope as well, how they cope with life. Some people can move through things easier, and some people find it very, very difficult to get through situations as well. So there are, or some people find it difficult at first, and then they kind of like push through situations. How do you kind of bring those scenarios together? Do you write them in one go sometimes, or do they?
Well, this is why I wrote Writing Unblocked, how I went from writing one book in 20 years to 5 books in 4 years, is because I got a master's degree in creative writing and English literature, and it taught me everything I needed to know about how to write a beautiful sentence that's well constructed, and how to write a beautiful paragraph that's well constructed, and, you know, how to deal with themes and metaphors and similes and, you know, all these things. But it didn't tell me how to actually make a book. You know, it told me how to make each sentence in the book, how to make each paragraph in the book, but not how to make the book. And then I went into the entertainment industry and learned things that you wouldn't think are critically important to writing, like how to deal with deadlines. And in particular, when I went into producing, but even as an actor, how do you find inspiration when that isn't the priority? Like if what you need to do a good job is to be visited by the muse, but now you're in the entertainment industry and what they need is for it to be 6 a.m. and it's call time and you just better be inspired. You know? Like they don't care if you're inspired. They just, cameras are going to roll whether you get there or not. You know, cameras are going to roll whether you find that in yourself or not. And so learning that of how to create art, create story, create character when I'm inspired and also when I'm not inspired, because it's my job and nobody cares if I'm inspired every single day. They just care that I do my job every single day. Then I figured out then my job must not be to find the inspiration every day. My job must be to find ways to create the work, whether or not I find that inspiration. Wow. And by thinking of it that way, by thinking of like, well, how does my industry, I took courses at this place called Writers Boot Camp, and their promise is that they can get you from a one sentence idea to a finished first draft of a script in like 6 weeks. And I thought, well, shoot, then can't that be applied to a book? Can't that be, you know? So I took everything I've learned from getting my master's in creative writing, everything I learned from producing films and acting in films and all that, whether or not it's raining or whether or not I feel tired or whether or not I'm sick or what, you know, all that. And everything I learned about, looking at getting your day done, getting a creative day of work done, given that creativity is ultimately a business.
Wow.
I took all of that and really developed a repeatable way of being able to keep moving forward every single day with my writing, whether I feel motivated or whether I even have, there's things I can do when I have no materials with me. There's things I can do when the electricity's out. There's things I can do, like I have a list of, because that's what movie making teaches you. No excuses. The show must go on.
It's
So
almost like finding your focus when you don't have the focus, making sure even if one thing gets done,
right,
and making sure that even if certain things happen, there is still maybe something that you can do, almost
right.
like being very solution focused.
Well, that's what a producer does.
Yeah.
Producers are just always have the answer to every question. It doesn't matter what the question is. The producer is the final, sometimes it's the director, but the producers usually are the ones with the purse strings. So, they're just solution manufacturers. That's what producers are. They are the answer people. They come up with solutions no matter what the problem is. And so having produced with Quentin Tarantino and producing on my own, I have figured out a lot of solutions to a lot of creative problems. And I've figured out how to rally my troops, no matter how dark the day gets. And so if I can do that for others, of course I can do that for myself. I just have to find methodology that, it's not, you can't tickle yourself. There are some things you have to, find methodology to get the same result. So that's what I did is I basically, by the end of writing 5 books, I had my method totally cemented. And the books I'm currently working on, I wrote a script in 2005 that I never had produced and put it in a box and put it away. And that script is the building blocks from which I am creating The Source, the book series that I'm working on now.
Yeah.
And so right away, the first thing I had to do was, okay, take my methodology that is highly repeatable and all that, and use it on this screenplay to break that screenplay down into the parts that are going to become the novel. So, yeah. And
Which
I
is
need it to be repeatable and doable.
But that's something more manageable as well for someone. And that's what, you teach in your courses that you teach as well, that it's manageable.
Everything
that someone can create something so powerful from a place of focus. That's what I'm getting from this conversation. Focus, manageability, and productivity.
I'm all about the productivity because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters is if you just sit around thinking a lot or just sit around, if you're just ruminating and percolating forever, I know how to turn that into work. I know how to take that process of the ruminating and the percolating, which a lot of us really enjoy. That's part of our favorite part, right? Is the coming up with it and the fleshing it out, the not having to write it down part.
Sitting there and just thinking about it, this would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So what I do, the way I describe it to other people when somebody asks me, well, what is it that you're doing that's so magical? The biggest thing that the way I describe it even to myself is that I'm basically, by the time I'm ready to write my first draft, I already know every single thing that's going to be in it without writing anything. I already have written down a whole book before I sit down at the typewriter. But you know what I'm saying is like, I already know. I never have writer's block. That's why I call it writing unblocked, because I never have writer's block because I always know what's happening. I always know what the next page will be. I'm never staring at a blank cursor going, I always know. And if I don't know, I just write. some scene here about that and move on to what I do know.
I like that.
So I have this plan that for everybody that I'm working with on it is fairly bulletproof, of that you just don't have to get tied up in the I don't know how to write, or I don't all that stuff, because by the time you finish doing this process that I've set up, your book is written and you haven't even sat down to write it yet.
Wow.
I call it the enough draft. That's what I call it, instead of the rough draft, because the rough draft you have to write, but the enough draft is enough to get started.
That is brilliant, because I do feel like there are so many people who have so much to write. Everyone's got a story.
Absolutely.
Everyone's got. My son is like trying to get in here. Oh, he's come for a hug. Right, go.
It goes while you can.
But everyone has a story in them.
Yeah.
And because obviously I'll summarize now as we end the conversation. But what I want to say is about what you're doing is you are diving into how we are as human beings, but not just from a physical perspective, from a genealogy perspective, from a genetics perspective, from a spiritual perspective, in terms of the source, which I'm really looking forward to reading when ready, obviously.
Right.
And you are being able to create through your own experiences from working in the film industry as a producer, to create something that you never run out of material.
Right.
That you can show up even when you don't really, when you feel like you don't have anything.
Well, and this methodology that I came up with is just as useful if you're writing like a manual or an office document that says how the office runs. Mm-hmm. Or it's just about being organized. The methodology I came up with is just about being so organized in your thoughts and ideas that you're eliminating obstacles to writing. And that was my experience especially when I'm coaching people, is that people have so many great ideas and they have so many things they want to talk about or write about or share or document. Like my mother wrote her life story, just, a chapter here, a chapter there, and chapter about different stories in her life, because she's 82 now and she wanted to have a document of her life to pass to her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And so, she's not a writer and she wanted to write a document of her life. And so, no matter what it is you're trying to accomplish with writing, whether you're taking a screenplay to a novel or a novel to a screenplay, or whatever your mission is, there's two things that trip people up. One is, I don't know how to write. That's a thing that people think they don't know how to write. Well, if you're talking, you're verbally writing. So you do know how to write. You just haven't done it yet. And that's okay. And the other is that they don't know how to get started. They don't know, like, oh, I have a great idea and I think I could write it. I know, or I could at least write it down and let my friend rewrite it, or, but they don't know how to get their ideas down. And that's the thing that I thought, well, that I know how to help people with in spades. I know how to help you get your thoughts down and started into, create a project. And even if it's not a creative project, a how-to book isn't necessarily the most creative thing. It's still going to require that you put a little of yourself into it. And it's still going to require that it be interesting enough for somebody to digest it. And so, yeah, I feel like everybody has something they're trying to make a record of. And I wanted to help with that, because if we all have that, and it was such a big struggle for me, and I'm educated, then, well, yeah, no wonder people don't know what to write, and they don't know how, because they don't have the tools for it. And once I figured it out, I was like, this is the first time I've felt like when people get religion and they're like, I can save you. I feel like that. Like I can save you so much time and energy and frustration and wanting to quit and all that stuff by laying out a plan that says you don't have to know how to write. You don't have to know, what you don't even have to know anything other than your one sentence idea.
That is, wow. That is incredible. And for anyone who's listening to this right now, I'm going to put some links in the description to Laura's programs, because I do feel like they are invaluable, for one. There will also be links to, connecting to Laura's website, her blog, and her YouTube page, because she is a dancer as well, and she does dance in Mardi Gras and does a lot of fundraising for her local community and things. So
Yes.
I think it's always beautiful as well to see the person behind, everything that is,
because and it's currently carnival right now, so it's parade season right this minute. So you're just as likely to see me, as a person doing my life, as you are to see me dressed totally in pink drag, dancing in a corset and combat boots. So, it's definitely an interesting, fun time of year. But I did want to make sure that your listeners know, that your audience knows, that I'm offering your audience a 20% discount for Writing Unblocked and for the Creating Characters 6-video course. The coupon code will be Trina Podcast, and that's 2 words, all caps. But yeah, Trina Podcast will get you 20% off of the Writing Unblocked book and also the Creating Characters 6-video course.
Well, what I'll do as well, because that is a real generous gift, so we'll pop that in the description as well.
Great.
So that will all be there in the description.
Great.
Because, for all the businessmen and women who watch this, they are in positions where they are, they are wanting to write. They're wanting to write articles so people see them in the world. They're wanting to speak on TEDx because obviously, that's the, a natural step and a progression.
I've even used this method to help me make decisions. I mean,
really?
It's a sound methodology for any time you need to organize your thoughts. That's basically what it is a system for organizing your thoughts and creating more material, brainstorming more material. But it's a system for like getting your ideas fleshed out and documented.
This is brilliant. I think and there are many people in, not just in the business world, but in many like different scenarios, who struggle with making decisions. So even just to use it for that is just, is a massive, massive help. I just want to thank you for being on today, and thank you for, honestly, as I said, we've had an incredible conversation even before we even got on here. And it's just been a real insightful conversation as well, and a real insightful conversation into us as humans, but into creation and into what we can create as humans, and that we don't have to give up. We can keep moving forward. Thank you, Laura. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we were able to finally get this going.
Yeah, no, it's taken some time.
I think I found an email or something from September or something.
Yeah, no, it was such a long time ago, and obviously stuff has got in the way. But when I said it was going to happen, I was like thinking, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. I just want to thank the audience as well for listening in. I always believe like the right people at the right time will listen and will get everything that they need. And as we said at the beginning, it's just that little bit of inspiration, wasn't it? From the audience. Yeah. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and I will be back with another episode in 2 weeks' time. And I cannot wait to share with you. But thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much.